All right, section 1.5. Let me see if I can get this to share. I'm really hoping the sharing works. There we go. Let's get this started. The goal of sampling is to obtain information about a population through a sample. When we end up with a sample that doesn't have the characteristics of the population we're studying, it means we've had a problem or we've introduced a bias. Now there are three sources of biasing or biases in sampling. I'll get it out right. We have the sampling, which by the way is the first line. A sampling bias is just as its definition. I mean, it really is. It means our technique that we used to select a sample to be in favors one group over another. And I'm going to bring up politics in this. And I'm going to go back a few elections. I'm going to pick out two in particular. One is again, I do not care about politics. I don't care about your politics. You don't care about mine. I'm just calling foul when they do something screwy. That's all I'm doing. And the two groups I'm about to pick on was when they kept broadcasting some of Obama's popularity. Not saying he wasn't, not saying he was. What I'm saying is how they did it. What they did was some trickery, and this is what we do in our surveys. And the bulk of the survey was done by phone line. Now, back then, we still had a good group of people I started phone lines, but guess what? We were already starting to cut the cord. We were. And the problem with polling and surveys is that when we want to sway something against trickery, we want to try to get some undercoverage without purpose. Well, it is on purpose, without outright saying we're doing it. So what they did was they did a phone poll, and they did it via landline, and they did it the hours between 9 and 5. Now they did that mainly because they were playing off stereotypes. And I'm not saying we should always do, but we do use stereotypes sometimes. And I'm not saying it's right, but it is. It's what we do. Because I want you to stop and think about this. Stereotypes I'm talking about is how people vote by demographics and stuff. So if we poll 9 to 5, we do a phone poll 9 to 5, what big group are we missing out on typically? The working class. And the working class, we're missing out first shifters because they're what? They're at work. We're also missing out on third shifters because they're asleep. And we're also missing out on a good chunk of the second shifters because, I mean, think about it, you could be 11 to 7. You're going to be leaving before 11, and you may only have an hour or two tops before, to be able to catch a second shifter. So the working class, and I'm not saying 100% because, I mean, you can have union members and such, but as a rule of thumb, working class tends to vote more Republican. So by just pulling that one little stunt of doing a phone poll between 9 and 5, we influence the percentage of each party we were going to get. So what happened on those popularity polls, I pulled about 3 of them, they did, and they did it on every one of them. We had, on average, it's not exact, about 3/4 Democratic voters and about 1/4 Republican. It's like, yeah. So what they did purposely was something called undercoverage. They had undercoverage of one political group. Now remember, I said I'm going to pick on another group. Well, guess what? Bush's popularity was done the same way, except they didn't do 9 to 5. They did 3 to 8 to catch more people at home that worked and such. And by doing a 3 to 8 phone poll, all of a sudden you had a majority of the other way. So timing on phone polls and such makes a difference on how and the percentage of people and who we're going to get. Something such as a sleight of hand of that caused an undercoverage. So that's what we're talking about here. And that's a prime example of done in real life. Now, when they start telling you polls and political polls and they don't tell you the percentages of voters on either side, be careful. They've done something to shenanigans like that. They've pulled shenanigans like that. That's the reason why people start catching on. It's the reason why more and more polls today, they're telling you the percentage. I said, to me, it should be what? 40, 40, 20? Like 40 Democratic, 40 Republican, 20 other. We could even do 35, 35, 30. Because, I mean, we've got the Green Party, we've got independents, Libertarian Party. So all that, it's not a 50-50 split. So even if you told me a 50-50 split, I'd be like, that's not right. We've got too many smaller parties that should make up a group. Okay. But undercoverage is when we have one segment that's not represented evenly enough. We have too low of a sample. Now, here's some examples that they give, Pearson gives. Look who's first one, talking about presidential election, Roosevelt versus Landon. By polling its subscribers, it turns out they had more Republicans on the list than Democrats. All right. And it also now talks about the telephone surveys, why they're not valid. And they bring up another point of group that doesn't get covered: homeless. All right. A problem with surveying, with sampling, is we run into something about, remember the term frames. A frame or a proper list of our population is not always easily obtained, not always up to date. They're constantly changing. So that's part of a problem with a in the sampling bias. It comes with our list of the population. It may not be proper. It may changed. The next one, of course, is the next one in the list, the non-response bias. Non-response bias, when we just say, I don't want to answer. Sorry, not going to answer you. Not no, I hate autocorrect. None. Non-response. A non-response bias is just basically, it's like when your surveyor's calling the telephone, you just hang up on them. I don't want to talk to you. Not going to do it. Again, Literary Digest. Mailed out more than 10 million questionnaires and only received 2.3 million. That's a less than a fourth. That's not a good response. So how do we improve our non-response? Well, first one is ask again. We ask again. Simple enough. You know, first time he ignored me, so I'm going to ask again. And I jokingly said, this is, I call it the nag factor. Ask again. 2, you still tell me no. I'm going to give you an explanation. Explain why. I tell students, I said, you know, when I send students out to do surveys and stuff, I'm like, when you go to ask, go ahead and tell them why you're doing it. Tell them, hey, I'm in a statistics course. This is a project for my class. Would you mind answering 2 or 3 questions for a project, for a grade? Most of the time, people will tell you yes. Yes. So a lot of times when you hear the reason why you're being asked and the importance of the survey, you'll comply. Maybe it's something you're passionate about. Or, you know, I've been in college too. I understand what it means to be. Get it. They'll do it. Last one. We all know that old adage about money talks. Yep, that's my joke. Money talks and we know what walks. All right. We offer incentives. $5 if you'll answer the survey. Chance to win a $250 Amazon gift card if you answer the survey. These are incentives. I don't know about you, I've never won anything from them incentive offers. But we buy into it because it's a school, it's a way to influence us. We'd love to get that. Hey, chance to win a free iPad. I'd love to have a new iPad. I'm working off my old one. All right. Money. That's how we improve our chances with the non-response bias. Last one is the response bias. We had non-response, now we have response bias. I summed this one up in 2 words. We lie. We lie. Our responses don't truly reflect our true feelings. If I get a political call and they identify with like the DNC, I'll tell them everything they want to know about the DNC, make them feel better. I get a phone call from the RNC. I'm going to tell them everything about that Republican candidate, make them feel, oh yeah, I love them. I'm definitely voting for them. Problem is, it doesn't matter. A lot of people are doing this to pollsters now because we've gotten to the point that a lot of us feel it's none of your business how I vote. It's mine. I don't want to answer a pollster on it. That's what I mean. Sometimes we lie. We lie. All right. So let's talk about the different types of response bias. One is the interviewer. Sometimes the interviewer will, by the way they ask the question such, influence your response. Sadly, I can't do this in class because I'm like, you like dogs, you don't like cats, right? Well, just my influence. I'm telling you, you like dogs, right? Instead of walking up to someone and honestly saying, do you like dogs or cats, and keeping a straight face. How we overcome an interviewer bias, it's part of the response bias, is that we hire third-party interviewers. They're professional and they're well-trained. They tend to be polite and non-expressive. They've been trained that way. This is most definitely where I put people lie. When I had kids going through school, since I had to fill out multiple answers, those lovely surveys they send out every year, kids knew they didn't want to be the last one on the stack because I kind of got creative. Again, I was screwing with the surveys because, don't send me 6, 7 of these things home when they're all going to be answered the exact same way. And I couldn't photocopy them because they made sure the forms were just slightly different. All right. But we lie. And how we overcome that is that we will ask the same question like 3 or 4 different ways. We're trying to flag where you're giving us the same answer. We'll eventually get, if we get misleading answers where all of them like don't add up to be the same thing, then yeah, we got a problem. Wording of questions is important. It goes right in hand with the order of questions. Because if we order our questions in the right way, we can persuade. We're planting the seed for the question we really want you to answer. So the questions need to be neutral, fair, and clear. A lot of times they start embedding hidden messages. I relate this to like back in the old days, they used to have subliminal messaging in ads. Well, they still use the type of subliminal message, but it's planting the ideas with questions and verbiage. Ordering of questions or words is that we ask the same thing, but we re-ask it in a different way. So that we make sure we get honest answers. Type of questions, they need to be closed. And multiple choice. If you're going to do an open-ended one, that's your essay questions where you want explanations. You're more aptly to get people to answer your closed-ended because it's just like checking a box. It takes less time. An open-ended essay question takes time and thought. You'll get less likely of a chance to get someone to answer. All right. Well, data entry, that is actually the very next line in number 6 too. A data entry error is the result because when we gather all this data, well, it's got to be entered into our systems. And last time I checked, we're only human. And it's very easy to have a typo. I'm sure if you guys doing your homework have miswrote something, flipped a number. Well, think how easy it is. Like the example says 39 versus 93. When we're typing, it's easy to have a typo. That's us inputting. You guys are going to find out data entry error when you go to start entering list into your calculators. It's going to happen. All right. Even a census can have a bias. Questions being confusing, and I like to be the non-response because until they start threatening me, will I answer the census? But I will finally do. All right. We also need to talk about non-sampling errors. These are all the same. They result from a sampling bias where we underrepresented the non-response and the data. All that plays into non-sampling. A sampling error happens when we make the error using a sample itself to estimate information about the population. And it happens when our sample is incomplete with characteristics and information. So that's a nice little quick. The last two bits is errors in sampling. We get the sampling and the non-sampling. And the last bit, how do we calculate a sampling error? Well, remember what a statistic and a parameter is? Well, the sampling error is the difference between the two numbers. That's what a sampling error is. Because remember, what is a statistic? It's a numerical summary of a sample. What is a parameter? It's a numerical summary of a population. The difference between the two is a sampling error. Gents, this is 1.5 wrapped up. Hopefully, I will see everybody next week.